I just wanted to ask, I think about the first stepping stones in your career. So, when you were right at the beginning, what were your kind of goals, and how did you begin to forge a career for yourself?
Okay. Firstly, thanks a lot for joining, everyone. I appreciate it probably won't be the same as a normal kind of Q&A, but I take it we're all in various stages of trying to get into the industry. And so I obviously don't know kind of at what level you're all at. And this is quite a difficult question to answer, Ruby. It's a good. Ruby, where are you in Belfast, or are you somewhere else?
No, I'm in Brighton.
Gotcha. Okay. It's quite a difficult question to answer, only because I guess over the last probably 5 years, really, how people get into the industry has kind of changed immeasurably. But I still think the same rules apply. So I want to be an actor when I was about 11 or 12. And then, you hear those stories of people saying, oh, I heard that little voice inside my head telling me to quit. And I said, no, I'm never going to quit, blah, blah, blah. I had the little voice inside me telling me to quit when I was 15. And I listened to it because it was right. So I was halfway through my GCSE drama exam. And my little voice inside said, you're not good enough at this to do this. And he was absolutely right. I would love to be an actor, but I simply wasn't. I didn't think I'd be a good enough actor. And but I always wanted to work in television or in radio or in broadcasting, and I thought I'd be suited to being in front of camera. But obviously, I haven't got anyone that work. None of my family work in the industry. I haven't got any ins in the industry. So, as I'm sure you guys can testify, you're sort of looking at a blank page and you're thinking, well, how can I get in there? At the time, there was no room for, there's no such thing as user-generated content. Like, there was no YouTube. There was no, there wasn't really even proper emails. I wrote letters, and it was like 95 I graduated, and then 96, I guess, 95, 96, I guess I got into television. And what I did was I just wrote letters with my CV to every production company out there. You had to go to the library then to get the addresses of them all. You couldn't look them up online. And I sent about 300 letters out, and I received about 290, probably about 100 replies. Most of those were no's, and a couple were maybes, and I got 2 job offers, and I went for a runner's job. One was a work experience on a film, which didn't pay anything, and one was a runner's job for a documentary company which paid something. And I went for that, and I got it, and I got my foot in the door, and and this is, I guess, the first piece of advice I'll give you is you just become indispensable. So everything is a yes. You don't, I'm sure in today's day and age, I would probably be seen as being taken advantage of, but to be honest with you, that's the apprenticeship. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it was just the way it was. So I'd finish my work as my office runner at 6 o'clock in the evening, and then I'd be out on the night shoot with one of the teams until about 9 or 10, and then I'd get up at 6 the next morning and do all that again. And that was my apprenticeship for about 18 months to 2 years. And so if you make yourself indispensable, then people will start to notice you, and after a while they'll realize you're still in the office, and they'll say, what do you want to do? And then I piped up and I said, well, actually, I really want to give front of camera a go. And most people just harumphed at that. And then one guy he said, listen, I work as a film researcher across town on another show, and I know they're looking for a pilot. They're doing a pilot for Channel 4, so send your CV. I did that. I got a screen test. I got another screen test. I got the pilot. Nothing happened to the pilot, but I got a show reel and an agent out of it. Same agent I've got today. And that was kind of my foot on the first run of the ladder, or the first step of the mountain. And then it just became graft and hard work and luck and and opportunism. And it's that's the kind of, I guess that's my take home for you guys, is make yourself indispensable. Be honest when people ask you what you want to do in the industry, and then work really, really hard to get there, and don't, you know, and it does require an awful lot of sacrifice. And it might not be sacrifice that you're willing to make, and that's fine. But it does. But just know that when you're going into it, it does require, you're going to miss an awful lot of christenings and weddings and funerals and birthdays, because that's kind of just the way it is. And you just, you know, try and make it up to your friends and family as best you can. But you know, most people understand. So does that kind of answer the question, Ruby? I mean, feel free to follow up, because I don't want anyone to feel shortchanged here.
No, that's great. Thank you so much.
No worries.
Thank you.
But I mean, just while I'm there, I think someone might touch on this, I imagine, later, given the generation most of you seem to be, is I'm really in favor of people putting their stuff out on YouTube, and I'm really in favor of people of your own user-generated content. The one thing I would say about it is, I think the sting is kind of going out of what people would describe as influencers now, because with no disrespect to anyone who knows what they're talking about, an awful lot of people don't know what they're talking about. So I think that the kind of, it seems to me to be a bit of a busted flush. So if you are going to put stuff online, by all means do so, but make sure it's stuff that you care about and you're passionate about and you know about. You don't need to be an expert about it, but you know the subject that you're passionate about, or you're just enthusiastic about. Because you can learn on the way. Part of being a broadcaster is learning on the way. You know, you retain an awful lot of information for a very short period of time, without never really being an expert on anything. You know, you become an expert on the first and last episodes in the box set, as it were. So by all means, do your own content, but make sure it's content that you know about and you care about.
Thank you. Brilliant. Well, that actually leads into Alana's question. Alana, feel free. Just as a little intro, it is sort of linking in community radio and the whole idea of podcasts. So Alana.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, thanks very much, Claire. Hi, Dermot. It's great to be here. My name's Alana Brunton. I'm an architect and an aspiring presenter. I've done work on community radio through college. I'm a presenter on the Saturday brunch show 103.2 Dublin City FM. And I guess my question is, like, how do you get as much experience as possible kind of leaping from, say, community radio? Like, I feel in a sense I have my foot in the door, but would love to know kind of how to, or have advice on how to get that kind of next step. Like, is community radio, you know, beneficial, or is it nearly kind of how loud you shout on your podcast or online?
It's a really good question, Lana, and the answer is it's probably both. I think radio, in many ways, is one of the best industries. Radio seems to still have the breeding ground of local radio, community radio, pirate radio. Like, for example, I look at Radio 1 and the guys at Radio 2 is different because it's an older workforce and it's an older listenership. But Radio 1 Extra, for example, I use over here, do a very good job of taking talent from community radio. So I'm good friends with Greg James, and Greg started out in radio. Greg isn't a TV guy. Greg's a radio guy. He absolutely loves radio, and he started out in community radio. So in answer to the first part of your question, I think you're absolutely in the right place because you're doing something and you're broadcasting, and that's you know, you're serving your apprenticeship now. I'd give you two pieces of advice. Firstly, cut together some kind of reel, or you say you do podcasts as well?
Yeah, I started my own podcast during lockdown. Yeah,
is it about anything in particular, or? It's
more or less about the arts and architecture.
Brilliant, incredible. So you've got what it was going to sort of lead on to my second point, but cut together what you think is, you know, your best. You maybe do two versions: your best 10 minutes, your best 20 minutes, and then send it to station heads. Just send it out there to any names you can get, whether it'll be over here or in Ireland, and just say, listen, this is what I'm doing at the moment. Can we meet up for a cup of coffee? I'm not expecting a job tomorrow, but I just want to keep, you know, I just badger people. And you'd be surprised that people actually will give you the time of day. The second thing you've really got in your favor is you have expertise and passion in the subject. And and there aren't many, there aren't many young broadcasters starting out that are also doing something else. So the fact that you're doing something else is really important. So I definitely, as long as you want to, I definitely would concentrate on your level of expertise, being an architect, and being using your expertise in what you know about buildings, an architect. Because I think, to have that skill and to be so young and have that skill is a real calling card.
Over now to Kitty. We have Kitty O'Neill next for our questions. Hi, Kitty.
Hi, Dermot. I just want to say, first of all, thank you so much. It's great that you're doing this. I've got a question. When you're ever worried about a part that you have or anything like that, what motivates you? Like, can you imagine a place yourself being in to motivate yourself, to make sure that you keep going and you follow through with it?
Do you mean kind of nerves and stuff, Kitty?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I think that to answer that question, I think the most important thing that you can do to kind of, you're never going to get rid of those nerves, and I think they're important to have. You never want to be, and it's happened to me a couple of times, and I sort of scold myself for it. You never want to go on air or on television feeling too you don't want to feel like I've got this. It's, I know my stuff. I'm going to be able to go out. I'm going to smash it. Doesn't matter, because whenever you feel like that, then you always get tripped up. So I think the most important thing is to do your homework. And I remember when I started out, I was doing a show called Recovered, and it was a great little music show on BBC Three, and bands would come on and they'd do one of their own songs and they'd cover another artist's song, and I helped come up with the idea, so I was very proud of it, and we got it on air. And I remember and we didn't have autocue, and some of the links were really long, even though I'd written them. And in my head I thought, lines are obviously really difficult because you're not an actor, so you want to I always insist that I sort of write and co-write my own stuff, but you're not an actor, so you want to learn it, but you don't want to learn it so much as it looks artificial when you're reading it. And so it's always a fine line, Kitty, between, how to do your own homework, as it were. And I remember I just didn't know it well enough. And I thought I did. And I did a big crowd there, a couple of hundred people. I remember I took about 8 takes to do the first link. And on the way out, one of my cameramen, who I'd known for a long time, who I started out with, just leaned into me and said, "Do your homework." And it really, he only really meant it as a joke, but it really stung with me. And actually, it's one of the most important lessons I've learned. Which is do your homework. So as soon as you feel prepared, you can conquer those nerves, because you know what you're doing and you know where you're going. And I think the most important thing in live television especially is knowing where you're ending up. Because if you know where you're ending up, and you know where you're starting, obviously, then you know where you're ending up. In the middle, you can kind of have your fun. You don't want that to be faffy fun, but you've still got to keep an interview on track. But as long as you know where you're ending up and you know where you're going to at the end of the 5-minute interview or something, then, and you know your questions, and don't be afraid of going off script on your questions, because you know where you're ending up. But so my advice to you in that regard is just make sure you do your homework and make sure you're really well prepped, and then when you're really well prepped, you can start to have fun.
Okay, thank you. That's great.
Thanks, Kitty. It's lovely talking to you.
Thank you.
Too.
Thanks, Kitty. Over to Lewis next, please.
There's Lewis.
Hi there, Dermot. It's nice to meet you. I just wanted to know, we obviously know you've worked on a lot of big things during your career. I just wanted to know what, in your opinion, is probably the best or maybe biggest project you've worked on, and why that would be.
Oh. Okay, yeah, no, it is a hard question because I've been lucky. So the biggest show is definitely the X Factor, because it's unheard of that a show lasts as long as it's lasted, and even though it didn't rate so well towards the end, when it was at its peak, it rated incredibly well. The One Direction year got 20 million, and no one really gets 20 million anymore. But then, so that show in its entirety definitely is definitely the biggest show I've worked on, and I think when social media kicked in, then that became even more apparent. But then you get these incredible opportunities to do kind of big one-offs, and I did the royal wedding with Harry and Meghan for the Beeb, and I was surprised to get asked, to be honest with you. And you know, and I had to think to myself, well, hang on, why do I feel? Why they come to me? Why am I? And I thought, well, you know what? This is a really important cultural event in this country, and it was a really interesting. I mean, I'm never going to see a world like that again. And so, and the Beeb have incredible access to things like that. So, I was really excited to do it, and it was an incredible day, largely because you're just seeing. Well, like I said, you're seeing this seismic event in this country, and you're one of the lead anchors for it. And I love those shows where you have to think on your feet, and the big live shows are the shows I've been doing some this mornings, and I really enjoy those because you're doing 2.5 hours, and you have to you're turning on the sixpence. You're going, okay, we're doing cookery over there, right? We're doing actually the phone-ins about COVID, and then you've kind of got to properly think on your feet. There's those things I think that I really enjoy. One of the reasons why I like radio is because, you know, every time you fade up the mic, you could be dealing with something totally different.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
No worries, Lewis. Thank you, mate.
Brilliant. Over to Joan now. Joan's getting handed the baton.
Yes, and also, Dermot, I want to say, you know Kitty's mummy, that is Jude's little girl.
Oh, Kitty. Say hello to your mum, Kitty.
Yeah, I will.
Okay, now we're going to hand over to Ross. Ross, are you there? You want to unmute? Thank you.
Sorry. Hi, Dermot. I just wanted to ask. Currently, at the minute, I'm really into like film and film production and stuff, and all that sort of aspect of the industry. But radio has always like really interested me. I just wanted to get your take on it and like how difficult it is to get into that industry and excel in it and like do really well in it. Sorry.
Film or radio?
Radio.
Okay. Well, the first piece of advice, Ross, I give you: don't quit either. I mean, just keep doing, because the more, and this is for all of you, the more strings you got to your bow, the better. So I started. I meant to say, earlier, when I was answering the first question, I started. I got this job as a runner of television, but I also started working my local radio station as well, and so I had I kind of had two things on the go. So I was working 5 days a week as a runner, and then on Saturday I'd go down to my local radio station and where my parents lived, and I was a runner there. And then eventually they said to me similar thing. They said, "What do you want to do?" And I said, "Well, I want to give reporting a go. I didn't want to be a sports reporter. I didn't want to work in sports, but I was doing a sports show." And so they chucked me a mobile phone and some car keys and said, "Get to that match and commentate on it." And I was like, all right. So my first piece of advice is don't give up either, because you never know what avenue is going to open for you. Radio is a terrific career. It's a career that you might, if you're working behind the scenes, find quite frustrating, because people tend to do it for a very long time. So the avenues, you don't get many openings in radio. I think because it's not necessarily a more specific skill than television, but it's a slightly narrower field. Opportunities are probably more in television because there are just more jobs and different shows being made. But really, really good radio stations aren't. You probably wouldn't get as many opportunities as quickly. But that's not to say you wouldn't. I'm just saying it's probably a harder industry in a strange way to get into. But when you're in it for life. So kind of just going back to what we talked about radio earlier on, I think with Lana, I think it's really important. Just try and get your foot in the door, and then I mean, half the reason why you want to work in radio and television is because you enjoy it. So that hard work shouldn't necessarily be. You might be tired, but you'll be going home with a smile on your face.
We're going to go to our other Ross Farrell, please.
Hi there, Dermot. It's great to meet you.
Hey, Ross. How are you, mate?
Yeah, I'm good. How are you?
Good, buddy. Very good. Enjoying this.
Good. So I just wanted to ask, what was your first TV presenting job, and what would be your dream show to host?
Well, I mean, it's a difficult one because when I first started, my dream show to host would have been just like a talk show. And now actually, I don't know, my life's changed, my world's changed, and the traditional talk show's changed. So I feel like I'm ticking that box with doing 3 or 4 things, whether it's the podcast I do for Audible, whether it's my Radio 2 show, whether it's doing This Morning. I'm getting that kind of, it's sort of satiated, I suppose. My first job, my first real proper job was really T4, which was the show that I did, which was a live show on Channel 4, and it was sadly it's not on anymore, which is a real shame because it's a great place for young presenters to get blooded. But it was hard. I mean, it's live, no auto cue. You have open talkback in your ear, so you have 6 or 7 people talking in your ear at one time. There's no kind of, we send you away for some training for this. You either sort of learn how to do it on the job, or you don't get, your contract doesn't get renewed. So it was incredibly difficult, but it was probably in many ways the most elemental show in my career, because I learned so much in such a short period of time, and I learned that, you know, I love to do live television, because you can do pre-recorded television, and that comes with its own skill set, absolutely. But I would advise you all, if you ever go down that route, to try and master doing live stuff, because not many people do live stuff, and it's it's a skill.
Okay, we're going to go over to Emily Ann Small now, please.
Hi.
Hello, Emily.
I'm wondering, do you know of anywhere that people can go to get some presenting experience if they're only just sort of starting out, or like stuff for your portfolio? How would you make that?
Well, Emily, I think the one thing I would say is don't spend any money on courses that say we'll teach you how to be a presenter, because I think that any agent or producer I know wouldn't look at those sort of show reels if they came through, because they're teaching you how to be like everyone else. And the whole point of doing what we all want to do and broadcasting is that you're trying to do it in your own unique way. So I think everyone here that's watching and that's taking part in this you're living in very exciting times, because you have the ability and the capacity and the expertise to go out and film your own stuff, and that's something that my generation had, but it was far harder, because you had to have someone with a camera, then you had to have someone editing. Then you had to take it to an edit house to get it looking nice. You guys have got this got a computer. You can do everything yourself. So the most important thing, and I've touched on this earlier, is do something you really care about, because what you don't want to do is when you're starting to do your own stuff is sound and look and feel like everyone else. When I started, my whole shtick was I'm going to be as honest as I possibly can. If I'm not a massive fan of a show, or like you're a fan of all the shows that went on T4, but at the same time, if there was something in the plot line or in one, or if one of the videos in the pop show is a bit rubbish, you could call it out, because that's what people at home are thinking. And you can't pull the wool over people's eyes, and they don't want you to. They want you to be as honest as possible. And so that was always, when I first started, that was always how I wanted to be, and that's how I got the X Factor gig. And then when I was doing X Factor, I thought, well, I'm not going to, if someone does a terrible performance, I can't lie to them. I've got to just be, I look disingenuous and I look like an idiot. So, you're still on their side, but you're like, what happened there? So yeah, I think that's the important thing is choosing what you want to, what you want to say. It's not really about just being famous. I mean, that's part of that's lovely, but it's not, that isn't really what you want it to. Like, because when you become famous, you go, oh, was that it? Oh, fine, okay. Well, what do I want to do now? So it's the most important thing is doing stuff you really want to do, because that's what will sustain you.
Thank you.
And put your stuff together. Interview any agent or any producer will want to see you being able to deliver some lines down the camera, you being able to interview someone, and try and make that interview as unique and interesting as possible. And that's basically what people want to see. That's your starting block, and then you can build from there.
Thank you.
All right, no worries.
Brilliant. Okay, now Mark Watson, you have a question?
Where's Mark?
Hi Dermot, how are you?
Hey, down there. Hey, Mark.
So I'm 17 and I was just wondering, what would you say to like 17-year-old you? Like, or is there anything you would do differently or keep doing or something?
Oh, that's a good question, Mark. I probably, Mark, would say don't, and this is financially even more incumbent on your generation, is don't rush to university for the sake of it.
Yeah.
I sort of wish really, I mean, I'm not naturally an academic person, but I wish I had probably gone to university a little bit later and maybe had a couple of years. And it may well be that I would never have gone, but don't go for the sake of, if you want to go, go, but don't go for the sake of thinking that you're going to get a qualification that's going to get you a job at the end of your degree. Because unless you're taking a vocational degree, all it shows an employer is that you can stick at something for 3 years. Sure, if you get into a great film school or you want to, I took politics and I love politics, and it probably doesn't have directly have an impact on the jobs I might get, but it's going to help me because I know more going to university than I did if I didn't go to university, studying politics. But I'd like to think I would have filled those 3 years with something just as worthwhile. So I'd say don't sort of limit your options, and to my 17 self, and don't necessarily rush into university.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay, do we have Charlie Henshaw?
Hello. I was wondering, what are you most looking forward to working on in 2021?
Charlie, I'm just looking forward to working in 2021.
Pretty sure everyone is at this point.
Do you know, Charlie, it's like TV is starting to get back on its feet, and I definitely miss doing live telly, although having done a few this mornings, it kind of helps. But I've never been more grateful to work in radio in my entire life in the last 20 years. And there's something about radio during lockdown that I think the medium just, I mean, for obvious reasons, the medium it kind of meant so much to many people. And especially when you we're lucky enough to work on a big radio station like Radio 2, and I was covering for Zoe Ball a lot earlier on in the year, and you just realize that you are genuine company for people, and you don't need to try and cram a show with too much. I just felt really appreciated, and actually, like I always said, I don't think that we're not getting as much out of it as anyone else listening at home, because everyone I spoke to that work in radio during the first lockdown was just so appreciative to be working and so appreciative to be broadcasting. Yeah.
Thank you, Charlie. Over to Connor next. Connor's got a Bible worth of questions.
Hello, Connor.
Off you go, Connor.
Okay, well, hopefully I don't have a Bible worth of questions, but I'll keep it short, concise. First of all, thanks for coming on. What am I talking about? This sounds like it's an interview. It's not. Essentially, all I was looking to ask, everybody's kind of touched on different parts. You've mentioned about maybe major dues, how to get your foot in there. What I'm kind of interested in, because similar to Alana, I started up podcasts and stuff to try and get more experience, more exposure. Are there any major don'ts that, as a professional in the industry, that you'd see people trying to get their foot in or trying to get more known, and you're going oh buddy, you should definitely avoid that, because that's one of the things at the moment that I'm a bit conscious of. The more I'm talking to people, I'm like, maybe there's some things that I should work on myself.
Connor, you're perfect.
Thank you. You too.
I won't have you talking about yourself like that. Do you know, Connor, it's a good question, because I'll give you an example. There was a guy who emailed me who I met for a cup of coffee, and I sort of mentor a couple of people. And there's a guy I met for a cup of coffee a couple of years ago, and I kind of gave him as much advice as I could give. He was working at Radio 2, and he was doing well. And then he emailed me again, and so I met with him again and largely gave him the same advice. And then he kind of emailed me again, and I was like, I don't know what to say anymore, because you've got to go and do it. I can't, like, I'm happy to meet you for a cup of coffee and just talk nonsense, but there's only so much wisdom someone can impart. Do that, go away and bring something back that's going to really wow him or her. You know, you can't just keep coming back with the same, I wonder if we can hook up and you can give me some more advice. He's giving you the advice. She's giving you the advice. You've got the advice. Now go away and do something that's going to impress them when you come back. That's kind of, I think, is the major don't.
Mm-hmm. Like, there's no major red flags to be like, you know, like this person's going to be blacklisted, you know, that kind of way. It's just essentially take the advice and run with it.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's just kind of, you don't want to be the annoying guy that's always banging on the door. So if you are going to bang on the door, like I said, come back on the door with something to show them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. No, that's fantastic. Here, cheers. Thank you.
I'll be a bit quicker with my answers. Let's try and get everyone. I want everyone to ask a question.
Everybody catered for. Okay, right. Quick fire now then, Jack. Off you go.
My fault.
All right, absolute pleasure to meet you and have this with you. I've been a big fan for a long time. They're saying about getting your foot in the door. How do you stay at the top? Keep working, getting the good gigs. How do you stay at the top?
Threefold, Jack. It's luck, it's talent, it's hard work, and they all have to marry in equal thirds, because you've got to be so lucky, and then as soon you've got to be lucky to get your foot in the door. You've got to be lucky when you get the gigs. You've got to be talented. I'm not being arrogant, but you've got to be good at your job, otherwise you just don't get work. But then you've got to work really hard. And I meet so many people that when they get the gig, they're like, "Great, I've got a job now. It's great." I'm like, "No, now the work starts. Now that's the most important thing. It's not about your bloody Instagram. It's not about it's not about your social media. Now it's about actually doing the job." All of that. I'm terrible on social media promoting my own stuff.
Yeah.
Because I spend more time prepping for my own stuff than I do promoting my own stuff. And I'd much rather be like that. I'd much rather be feeling confident about walking into the interview than me just going, "I'm about to interview Bruce Springsteen." You know what I mean? It's like, it should be a bit more like that, maybe. Like I said, just the take homes are concentrate on your expertise. Don't take no for an answer, but don't be too pushy. When you do come back with something, and just work ever so hard to get your foot in the door. And it doesn't matter how you get your foot in the door, get your foot in the door, and then become indispensable.
Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.